Simple Suburban Murder. Tom and Scott Mystery. Book 1. Author Mark Richard Zubro. Publisher St. Martin's Press, New York. Narrator Eric Aust. For Kathy.
Chapter 6. When I woke up, I heard all over. Everything. I moaned. Tom, it was Scott. I tried opening my eyes. I could tell it was night, but everything else was a blur. The effort to keep my eyes open was too great. I closed them. The gravel of the driveway poked into my back. I felt Scott's hands, easing, caressing, his voice trying to soothe. You're going to be all right. The ambulance is on the way. I felt a pressure on my forehead. I tried to pull away. Pain streamed in my head. Easy. I want to clean off some of the blood so I can see how bad it is. He tried to sound calm, but I detected the tremor of scared in his voice. I groped for his touch. He took my hand. I put both of mine around his. I tried to concentrate on the warmth of his touch and not on the pain in my head. I was only partially successful. I flickered in and out of consciousness. Next, I remember lights and movement. Ambulance? I mumbled. I'm here, Tom. Scott's voice seemed to come from a vast distance. I realized I still clutched his hand. The next time I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. I felt drugged. Probably, it dawned on me, because I was. The pain lived at the dull ebb of consciousness, gone for the moment. I moved my head a quarter inch. It didn't hurt. Boldly, I tried it more. I surveyed the room. The curtains were open. It was night. Scott sat in a chair. His head leaned to one side. He was asleep. I tried to assess the damage. I flexed each arm. They moved slowly and stiffly. I brought a hand to my face. I touched an enormous bandage around my forehead. There was a small bandage over the bridge of my nose. I tried to look at it, became cross-eyed and then nauseous with the effort. A cluster of smaller bandages covered the right side of my face. Gingerly, I continued inventory. Ribs, legs, torso. There were sore spots everywhere, each earning a separate wince as I probed. Nothing obvious was broken, except my nose. I realized I needed to piss. I was awake enough to decide to try the short trip on my own. I started to swing my legs out of the bed and almost passed out. Obviously, this was a mistake. Half off the bed, I lay back, waiting for my equilibrium to return. Scott rustled in his chair. He woke up and looked at me. He came over slowly and sleepily. What the hell are you trying to do? Practicing for a dance marathon, I grumbled. He gave me a sour look, then reached over and rearranged me in the bed. I gotta piss, I muttered. He held a plastic bottle out to me. I gave it a bleak stare. No way. Help me up. I won't use that thing. Scott sat on the edge of the bed. He yawned. Don't be stubborn, he said. I'm not being stubborn, I said stubbornly. I refuse to submit to the indignity of pissing into a bottle in a bed. I'll call the nurse, and we'll hold you down, he warned. Only if he's 6'8" and a redhead with a 10-inch dick. She is probably none of those. Shit. Come on, Scott. Help me up. You'll probably fall flat on your ass and hurt yourself even worse. You're pretty banged up. I figured that out already. Now help me up, please. Reluctantly, he helped me up. He was right. I shouldn't have tried it. It took 15 minutes to make the 15-foot round trip. I managed it, barely. I shut my eyes. When I lay back down, I felt the pressure of his body as he sat down on the bed. Sorry now, he said. A little. I concentrated on breathing evenly and fighting down the nausea. When my stomach was under control, I opened my eyes and focused on him. Am I all right? I asked. Pretty much. The doctor says your nose is broken, but fortunately nothing else. They aren't sure about internal injuries. They don't think so. In addition, you've got lots of cuts and bruises and maybe a slight concussion. I feel like shit. I paused and looked out the window again. What time is it? About 4:30 in the morning. What happened? I asked. That's what I want to know, he said. I told him what I remembered. What brought you outside? You took too long coming in. I got an uneasy feeling, so I came out with a flashlight and a baseball bat. I saw you on the ground with two guys kicking you. I went nuts. They tried to fight, but I landed solid hits with my first swings of the bat. They ran off. I'd have chased them, but I was worried about you. When I checked, you were unconscious and there was a lot of blood. I called the ambulance and here we are. I asked the obvious question. Why warn me away? They arrested the killer. I don't get it. Maybe whoever it was didn't know they'd arrested the killer, he suggested. That happened hours before. If Vance is the killer, you'd think they'd know what happened to him. Maybe they have lousy communications. I don't think that makes sense. What they are we talking about? I don't know. Maybe the police arrested the wrong guy. That makes a bunch more sense to me. And whoever did it wanted to warn you away. We were close to something someone wanted to hide. Presumably the killer, or maybe close to information that threatened somebody. You mean Sylvester and Armstrong? Yeah. I'm not sure that makes sense. Almost anybody could have attacked you. Only anybody who wants to keep us from looking into the murder. Then why not attack both of us? Scott asked. Maybe they didn't want to try taking both of us on. Or maybe they thought one warning would serve for the two of us. That reminds me, there were two cops here to ask questions. I couldn't tell them much because I didn't see a lot. They said they'd be around in the morning. Something to look forward to, I replied. I looked out the window, framed in the light of the street lamp. The first flakes of the promised snow drifted lazily. I was exhausted and too tired to puzzle out the whos and whys. I closed my eyes and slept. Frank Murphy arrived the next morning around 11 o'clock. I was awake and restless. I still hurt, but I was ready to go home. Scott insisted I wait for the doctor's approval. We talked to Murphy together. I didn't know they sent homicide detectives out on assault investigations, I said. Usually they don't, but I heard your name among this morning's reports. I thought I'd come check it out. What happened? When I finished, he asked, You didn't get a look at them? Not at all. I did, Scott said. But I didn't really see much. I dropped the flashlight when I attacked them. The lights from the house were dim. I couldn't even tell you if they were black or white. Murphy turned back to me. How about their voices? I said, the voice that whispered was so low and gravelly I couldn't tell if it was natural or disguised. They didn't say anything while we fought, Scott added. And you think it had something to do with your snooping around? Don't you? If Robertson was here, he'd say no, and that you must have misunderstood what the attacker said. I didn't misunderstand, I said. What other motive was there? I've still got my wallet and money. It wasn't robbery. Robertson would also say that random violence can strike any one of us any time. But he's not here. So, what do you think? I let my comment dangle. I think it's real curious and more than a coincidence, but I don't pretend to be able to explain it. I believe we have the right man, but I'm open to exploring any options you can give me. We told him the whole story, including the gambling, the sex with students, everything. How'd you get people to tell you all this? Was Frank's first reaction. I tried to shrug casually, but it hurt too much. Do you think anything we've told you will help? I asked. I don't know. I have to be honest with you. Robertson, the lieutenant, and the state's attorney will think Vance did it. Interest in the sex charge would be minimal, because Evans is dead. No one to prosecute. No headlines to grab. Furthermore, a lot of what you told me is unsubstantiated. If we sent a cop to ask these same questions, each person could simply deny it all. But there were two of us. There most of the time, Scott protested. I'm a witness. You aren't cops. You had no official status. Scott swore. Can't you do something? I can tell my superiors about reopening the case, but I don't hold out much hope. Could you at least tell me a couple of things to satisfy my curiosity? I asked. He hesitated. What do you want to know? And you haven't heard any of this from me. What does Vance say about them being together? He says it was departmental business. At midnight on a Wednesday? He swore it was true. We asked him what business. He clammed up. The information on gambling you gave me might open him up. Let's say they did discuss gambling, I said. Then they had a fight. Evans was a royal prick. I can easily see a major disagreement. But then what happened? Vance says he went home and he didn't know anything until the next morning. Obviously, he didn't tell us about their meeting the first time we talked to him. That's what made us suspicious. Did he say why he didn't tell? He didn't want to be implicated. And now he is. I shifted in the bed. Did you search his place for the murder weapon? We don't expect to find it. It's too easy to drop a heavy, blunt instrument off a bridge or in a distant trash can. How'd you know to question him again? Who let you know? They were together. The medical examiner found undigested food in his stomach. He concluded Evans had eaten within a half hour before he died. There aren't that many places open to eat around here at that hour during the week. We started asking around, showing his picture. He could have eaten in Chicago and driven here, I suggested, or eaten at home or at a friend's, Scott added. Not in Chicago. It's an hour's drive. We knew he wasn't at home. He wasn't with anyone he knew, or at least any who would admit it. We decided on the possibility of a restaurant within the area. It was something we had to check. We'd gone to 8 other places before this one. We had another 10 to go within a 15-mile radius. It took a while to get to everyone who worked that night at each restaurant. It turns out the waitress that served them had off all weekend. We talked to her Tuesday morning. She was sure it was Vance. We matched the description she gave us with everybody connected with the case, including yours. She picked Vance's picture out right away. There wasn't some anonymous tip? I asked. No, nor any car chase, shootouts, tear gas, or machine guns. There seldom is, he smiled. What I mean, I said, is it would make more sense to me if somehow Sylvester and Armstrong steered you to Vance. How so? You don't like them, but that doesn't make them conspirators in a murder. It's the type of thing they would try in order to divert suspicion from themselves. We did talk to them again yesterday at your school. In addition to telling us about your evil ways, they told us about the competition in the department. Did you know Evans was in line to be head of the department? No, I admitted. He had seniority. Vance saw him as a rival. I don't buy that. Vance's job was secure. Maybe, Frank said. What about this then? If what you told me is all true, wouldn't they try to divert the suspicion to you? Probably, I said. They didn't. Sure, they told us how rotten you are, but when we asked about Vance, they were most helpful, and besides, they had no way of knowing Vance and Evans met that night. I think those two are out of the picture. I can't believe that, I said. I do agree they've done something illegal, Frank added. I just don't think whatever it is has anything to do with the murder. Maybe not, I said. I let it rest. I had no proof. Frank said, I'll want to see that computer disk. We might be able to get into the program. It's at home, I said. I'll send someone to try to pick it up later, Frank said. You can let the police handle it now. After Frank left, I said to Scott, you need to go home, make a copy of the disk. If the police find out, they'll be pissed. I tried my most seductive smile on him. He held up his hand. That doesn't work with your head all bandaged. Besides, you know that computer stuff baffles me. I'll never be able to make a copy. Oh, yes, you will. You have to. If necessary, you can call me from home, and I'll guide you through it. Shouldn't I wait here for the doctor's report? This is more important. I don't want the police to get there before we have time to make a copy. You've got the car keys. I can't leave without you. You could be back here in less than an hour. Half an hour, maybe. Then you can talk to the doctor to your heart's content. He didn't like it, but he agreed. I explained to him what to do, and he left. One of the few things I let him buy me was the most up-to-date and sophisticated home computer system on the market. I'd worked on the Evans disk in brief snatches since we got it. I'd had absolutely no success. Now I for sure wanted to keep a copy. It was the last fresh clue I had. Neither the killer nor the police would stop my investigation. That afternoon, the transfer from the hospital to home was smooth and easy. The doctor wanted to keep me another day. I convinced him Scott would take care of my every need. At home, Scott got me settled in and comfortable. He spent part of the afternoon installing the state-of-the-art security system he'd bought that morning. This time I didn't object. He'd called in sick for me that morning. That night I called Sylvester myself. I let him know I'd be out another day. Sylvester was subdued and businesslike. He did not wish me a speedy recovery. A cop came by around 4 o'clock to pick up the computer disk. Earlier, I checked the copy Scott made. It was perfect. I spent the evening propped in a chair in front of the computer, going through all the combinations I could think of to get into Evans' program. I had no more success than before. I was still sore and tired from the beating, so I went to bed early and slept late the next day. By now I was up and mobile. Slow, but active. I insisted Scott attend a luncheon he had scheduled and that he go to an afternoon photo session for the cover of some magazine. I worked all day at the computer, still no luck. Around 8, Scott brought home dinner, takeout Chinese. Afterward, I went back to the computer. He worked with me, offering suggestions. It was useless. None of it did any good. We went to bed around 10:30. Scott gently massaged my various aches. I fell asleep, wrapped in his arms. Dim pounding nudged into my brain. I woke up. I glanced at the digital clock. It was 1:17 a.m. The pounding continued. I realized it was someone at the front door. I looked at Scott. He slept on. He claims he slept through a tornado once. I shook him. He mumbled. I hurried into some jeans. The doorbell began pealing spasmodically. I shook him again. "Wake up," I said. Scott became semi-conscious. "Someone's at the door. It's 1 a.m. I'm going to answer it." A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.